Hey guys, I'm learning TFT, back with another video where I'm going to share my learning process so that I can learn more effectively and you can learn in the process as well. In this video, I'm going to go through the initial data on differences between 1424, the new patch, and 1423C to see what the statistical differences are as far as AVP, win rate, overall performance of different comps, and connect the data with the connecting the quantitative data with the qualitative impact of the patch. So going through line by line of the patch, and I already did the research, so it's more so summarizing connecting the line by line patch changes with the actual comps so that it can guide our decision making process as far as what the meta looks like moving forward into 14.24. Of course, this is 1 day's worth of data. Sample size is going to be low. Meta often changes, especially for this patch where it's going to be a long riot break. So I would expect that this is like kind of an initial snapshot and that things will probably change over time, though that remains to be seen. Before I dive into it, I do want to share one quote that kind of talks about how to approach change. This is especially relevant for new patches. It can be easy to get frustrated when a new patch comes out and feel lost and not have a clear idea of what's happening and stick to what works for you before. And so this idea, I think, can help us adjust to new patches and new sets. And it's just useful for life in general. So Henry George said, "We should be ready to change our views at any time and slough off prejudices and live with an open and receptive mind. A sailor who sets the same sails all the time without making changes when the wind changes will never reach his harbor." So what this quote's saying is that if you are hard committed in a certain direction, whether that's in a game, without scouting, without when the wind changes, is like when Mort Dog sends a possible alternate path your way, or when you find out that you might be contested, if you are hard committing and not taking in new variables, how the environment is changing, then you're never going to reach your destination. And the same applies for a new patch. If you are fixed on this specific thing working because that's what worked for you last patch, but you're not really considering how the wind is changing as far as what's shifting in the meta and the patch, you're not going to be able to perform well. So with that said, I want to first go over kind of tactics.tools they have under stats and trends. They have kind of high level impact of the patch changes, and then I'll go into a detailed analysis on kind of what that means for the meta comps. So if you look here, the high level impact is Chem-Baron got buffed. So 765 Chem-Baron emblem got buffed, and my last video was talking about Chem-Baron. Chem-Baron's going to be probably your highest upside comp in the game right now. Let me see. Yeah, so if you pull up MetaTFT sort by win rate, Chem-Baron Silco here, 35% win rate. Just clearly the highest win rate, highest cap comp in the game. From a play rate standpoint, you have like 6 Conquer. This is like a massive win streak perspective. Otherwise, the next closest is like 7 Rebel and then Violet Family Reroll. So if you have a Chem-Baron start, that's going to be your highest cap scenario, which is why Chem-Baron's so strong right now. Nocturne got an attack speed buff. Automata got a buff. You can see here 6 Automata is extremely strong right now. So if you get an Automata emblem, you can go Nocturne reroll. Quick Striker here is also got trending up. RFC is one of Nocturne's best items. So because he got better, this also got better. Violet reroll with Camille getting nerfed in a number of different ways. Now Violet has more of an opportunity to shine because before in the one-on-one matchup between Violet and Camille, oftentimes Camille would win that matchup. And now that you can see here, Camille is trending down a lot. Violet doesn't get knocked out by your Camille rerollers. So she is going to be able to perform a lot better as well, which makes the Pit Fighter and the family emblem perform better. And by the way, if you look at the emblem stats here, you can see this is average placement, this is frequency. Family emblem is like blowing. This emblem is just utterly broken right now and can turn your Violet reroll from a like 4.0 AVP to a, actually maybe we could just look at it because I'm curious. So if you go Violet 3 with a let's see, traits, do we not have enough data? Okay, so let's look at family here. So Violet 3 without 4 family, and there's by default 3 family units. So if you get a family emblem, you increase your placement by almost 1. And if you get 2 family emblems, then you go from like a 4.5 to a 3.0, and your win rate goes up by like 23%. So this family emblem, which takes a spat and a tier, and this is a pan and a cloak. So emblems are very good on this Violet reroll angle, and just gives you a huge cap potential. And some of these items like Silver Mirror, Prowler. Silver Mirror was nerfed a little bit, I believe, and Prowler, I forget. But these decreased in value because Camille got nerfed. Scar Kog'Maw reroll was nerfed as well. So now if you are going to play Kog'Maw, you might consider playing it with an Automata angle. And then Dominators now, because Heimer was nerfed, so you can see here Heimer got nerfed pretty hard under the Black Rose line. So Silco Dominators is now the better line to take when you're going Black Rose. All right, so that captures like kind of high level summary, and now I'm going to go into detail on what that means for all the main meta lines. So here I have 1424 compared to 1423C, and I have this filtered by diamond because just to make sure we have a reasonable sample size. And this is the comp, the tier that I'm assigning based off of what the stats look like, the damage type. So a lot of times you're going to choose a comp based not on the units that you have initially, but more specifically on the item components that you have. So basically melee would be like sword, glove, cloak. Like basically if you could slam like BT, Titans, Starax. Hodge got a nerf, which I should actually mention here. But Hodge is really not a great item anymore. So like if you look at Violet, Hodge here is just performing much worse than BT now. Hodge was Camille's best item, and so Hodge got a vamp nerf. So you really want to prioritize BT over Hodge now. So AP is going to be like a lot of rods and tiers, and then AD usually it's like Tristana, Twitch, Corki is going to be more like IE, Last Whisper, Rageblade. So depending on what components you have in stage 2 can guide which direction you take. And when, for example, if you're going melee, then you can move up this kind of tree and you can go like 1 cost Violet. If you're contested, you could maybe consider Nocturne. You could consider 4 Emissary and Bessa. Since if you are playing Violet from a contested standpoint, this, and we just saw too that this 3-9 is heavily influenced by, I should add here that this is, emblem is a big condition here. If you don't have that family emblem, Violet is probably more of like an A tier. So S with with emblem, like A without emblem probably. So this is probably like good at top fouring. So I'm just gonna do like this. All right, I'm just gonna leave this like this, and then if you watch me say this, then you'll remember hopefully. I'll also include links to this in the description below. So this is the reroll like type of comp, and then the AVP is average placement, pick rate, win rate, and top four rate. And then this is the difference between 1424 and 1423C. And so anything with significant minus, I color coded as green, which means it got a big buff. So Chem-Baron Silco and Automated Nocturne got big buffs. Their AVP went from like 5.4 to 4.3. So you can tell that that's extremely good. Let's see, win pick rate went up. Okay, I need to change. I think I have these backwards, so I apologize. I'm gonna be doing this on the fly. Okay, so red here means that the pick rate went up. You know what? I'm gonna shift the coloring. I want green to be. Okay, I wanted to show us when the pick rate went up to say like, hey, that's probably an indicator that we should play it more. And then win rate. Okay, win rate went up. Yeah, Chem-Baron Silco win rate went from 20 to 35. This went from 3% to 13. And then top four rate, this minus this. There we go. Okay, so for the most part, you just want to look for greens across the board. So Chem-Baron Silco and Automata Nocturne got huge buffs. One thing to add to is I highlighted in light green here the unconditional comps. So actually, I'm going to say this is like yellow. Since without the family emblem, this is more of like a 3-9. So I suspect you play this when uncontested and from ahead with tempo if you get early violet. Or if you're playing on like loot subscription or some encounter where you are likely to get an emblem. And the other thing to keep in mind is that repeating anomalies was basically, you can now have repeat anomalies in the anomaly roll down. So it's much harder to hard force a single anomaly, which is why Urgot RIP is dead. All right, so next I went through the patch notes and I connected all of the, let's see. So I went through the patch notes and I connected all of the like changes to like units, traits, all of these, and then figured out which units are in which comps and which augments, and this is more of a feel thing than a stats thing now, which augments benefited which comps, and put them all here to see like why these changes occurred, as well as listing out conditions for when to play these comps. So I'm not going to go through everything. I kind of want to just go through the highlights. So Violet is now like hands down the best AVP. We saw that big part of that is because Family Emblem is completely broken in this line. Violet benefits with the Camille nerf. So you can see here, Camille fell off a cliff, went from 4.3 to 5.0. Top 4 rate went from 54 to 41. And that's because Ambusher was nerfed, Camille was nerfed, Smeech was buffed, Hodge was nerfed. So a lot of nerfs targeting Camille, which benefits Violet. The other big thing that helps this comp is that Vi's shield and AD were buffed. So Vi is actually the I believe, statistically highest performing forecast by a lot, like 4.28 compared to 4.4. And so with this anomaly change where you can't hard force, and what is it? Ultimate Hero was also nerfed so that you have to wait 3 rounds before Violet turns into a forecast. So a big part of playing Violet reroll now is not hard forcing the anomaly, but rather playing towards a dual carry with Vi. If we look at this with a Vi with 0 items is 4.1 versus 3 items is a 3.4. We can also do the diff between a Vi 2 is a 3.2 versus Vi 1 is a 4.8. So what this says is that Violet is no longer the, she's not a solo carry comp. This is a dual carry comp. And you really are leaning into Vi's buff here, which also makes it easier for your anomalies. So that you can give an anomaly to Vi or Violet. If you happen to get Ultimate Hero, great, but you can look for other anomalies that might make sense. And let me pull up. I have like a high level list, so Ultimate Hero here. These are just like kind of looking through myself. I also played one with, what was it? The Deep Roots yesterday where I got first with Violet. Which seemed pretty good. I had a Titans on her, so that helped the HP here. And it pulls all of them into range, so you could even second row Violet on same side. And then put like your Vi next to it. Seemed reasonably good. So some artifacts nerfs, but they're both still very good on Vi right now. So if we go to artifacts, like Suspicious Trenchcoat and Silver Mirror are still quite good. I think last patch this was like a, well, actually we could just look at it. Yeah, not too much change really. In fact, the stats look even better, maybe because of Camille being dead. Shop glitch. Now the augment gives you more rerolls. Welcome to the Playground got nerfed on the creep rounds, and Hodge was nerfed. So some mixed stuff, but overall Violet got huge buff. Black Rose Silco, AVP improved by 1. Pick rate went up. I expect Silco should be much more contested. From a forecast standpoint, he's the second best performing forecast, but the play rate is much lower, and Heimer still has a higher play rate than Silco. And given that Silco is now the preferred way to play Black Rose over Black Rose Heimer, and it is extremely strong in Chem-Baron Silco, this will probably shift. And even when I was looking at the data between today, this is the second day of the patch, compared to like last night, this frequency, pick rate for Heimer has been going down, and pick rate for Silco has been going up. So I would expect Silco to be more and more contested over time. Black Rose was nerfed, but this line is still quite strong. The Black Rose Crest is not offered on 2-1. Anytime you're playing this line, Econ Augment's going to be better for Fast 8 on 2-1. Or if you're streaking, and Lux 2 is probably your best bet to streak with down this line. 7, Rebel, I don't believe Rebel got much of a change at all across anything, but just because all the other top comps got impacted, which was Black Rose Heimer got nerfed, Camille got nerfed, Black Rose Silco kind of got nerfed in ways. But that's why Rebel now, it was already strong last patch and continues to be strong now. 6 Sentinel Heimer, pick rate has gone up. Likely because Black Rose Heimer pick rate has gone down a lot. It's just inferior. So now a lot more people are playing this. And a part of that is that Loris's shield was buffed, Heimer was nerfed, Jace was buffed, and Rumble was nerfed. So Loris in the mid game is a more viable tank, and you have more upside with Jace as far as capping out this comp. A condition that helps a lot for this comp is if you have a good academy item that can be placed onto an early Lux. If you happen to get Ezreal, Lux, and Leona, since that just helps your itemization a ton. If you have like a Static Shiv or an Archangel or a JG or something that can go on Heimer later. Chem-Baron Silco, I talked about this in my last video. Chem-Baron was buffed in a million ways. A lot of times now, what you could basically view this patch change for Chem-Baron as whatever cash out you have gotten before. If you would have gotten a 200 cash out, now on average you can get 300 cash out given the changes. If you were at 300, you can get 400. And the AVP, if you're playing this line from 2-1, is probably, if you have 3 Chem-Baron in at 2-1, you're probably averaging like a 4-0 or higher. And if you have 4 Chem-Baron in by Carousel, if you can pick it off Carousel, I think your AVP is probably like 3-0 or above. And if you have Chem-Baron Emblem, your AVP is probably something like 3-0 or higher. If you can get a 500 cash out, your AVP is going to be like a 1.5 or something. Enforcer didn't really change much. This line requires an emblem. So the AVP improved in large part because, I didn't mention that Vi is in this line. Vi, shield / AD buff. So this line is definitely more viable if you have the emblem. It doesn't have that much of a win out potential, but is much more reliable at level 8 with Vi being buffed. For Emissary Tristana, this is really hard to get into. Sentinel Tristana is a lot easier to play because you're rolling at 6 and you can't really get the Emissary units in at 6. So Sentinels just align more, and maybe you can hold your Emissaries and then eventually transition from Sentinels to Emissary because it has a higher cap, 10% versus 14% win rate. Tristana's attack speed was buffed, Corki was buffed. Quality over quantity is quite good with Emissaries since they can all be carries. That was buffed. And the condition here is that you really want a Tristana in stage 1 out of an orb, probably like one of the first orbs, with a slammable item like IE basically. Because if you get Tristana out of the orb and you put her in the creep round, she could usually get like just one cast. If she explodes and hits a minion and that explodes and hits a minion, she can get 2.5% AD per minion round. And then if you have a slammable item and can hopefully streak, this is how Tristana can win out, or at least top 4, is you snowball stage 2 and get a ton of AD stacking, which really starts with getting her in stage 1 with an IE basically. So it's very conditional, which is why the pick rate is quite low. Nocturne reroll, 6 Autonoma Armor MR was buffed, which is basically on par with, let's see, with Sentinel now, I believe. So 6 Sentinel gives 42 times 3 is 126, and 6 Autonoma is 150. So it's actually more armor MR than 6 Sentinel. It does require 1 Automata emblem because there are only 5 Automata units. Plus you need a Malzahar, so this is an extremely hard trait to reach. But the difference between a Nocturne 3 with 4 Automata by the default is a 4.6 versus 6 Automata is a 2.5. Now, part of that is probably influenced by just, if you are able to even get to Malzahar, that means that you survived long enough to be able to hit this upside case. But it's just still similar to Violet. If you don't have the family emblem, you probably average like a top 4. if you hit everything and are ahead of tempo. If you get Nocturne 3 and hit ahead of tempo, you're probably also a top 4. But the cases that you can really cap out is when you have the extra family emblem or the extra automata emblem. So Nocturne got an attack speed buff, Blitzcrank's shield was buffed, Twisted Fate was buffed. So lots of buffs on this line, which is why this and Chem-Baron are probably the biggest winners of this patch. Yeah, like you just look at the win rate and top 4 rate differences in AVP. Bruiser Twitch wasn't really touched. I guess Mundo's ability nerf with the emblem impacts this board. Caitlyn AD was buffed. So this really relies on, because the Twitch like doesn't have much win out potential and AVP is like kind of mid. For this line to work, you need to play from ahead, likely with a Rage Blade start. It does have a higher cap now with the Caitlyn AD buff, but like a Draven 2 with a Rage Blade and strong frontline can lead into this. A sniper like Maddie 2 start with a Bruiser frontline can lead into this. But yeah, in general, you want to play this from ahead. Scrap, Ziggs was buffed, Corki was buffed. It has improved 0.4 AVP. It was at 4.9 before, now it's like kind of middle of the pack. Win out potential is like kind of mid. So this is similar to Bruiser Twitch. It's a viable line to take if you want to play AD, though you'll note that AD in general is inferior to AP right now. 7 Rebel, usually you're playing with a Zoe main carry. You can cap out with your Jinx in the late game, but that's inconsistent and unreliable. Melee is going to be some of your best reroll options. AD is like kind of your fallback. Of course, if everyone else is playing AP and contesting each other or Melee, and you're the only one going AD, that can still be a consistent top 4, top 5 line. And I'm not going to go into too much detail down here. Maybe the 2 I'll mention is these 2. So 2 Conqueror was buffed, Swain 3's healing frontline was buffed. And so this line improved slightly, but it's very expensive board and hard to hit. Whereas this, for Emissary Mbessa was buffed, Garen was nerfed. Quality over quantity, HP was buffed by, I think, 12%. So this augment, I just saw Appy's had a first with this augment. It was already quite good on, it gives, if you have like 1 item on a unit, then it'll make it radiant. And because a lot of the units on this board are very strong, they can all be carries. So this line can be quite strong. Emissary and Mbessa here. You can see all of these units can be carries. So if you get quality over quantity, this might shift from a 4.7 to like a 4.0 or something, or even higher with higher cap out. Maybe even brings it to like a 3.5. Like Appy's won pretty convincingly with this. And this can just be a backup option in case you were trying to go Violet or Nocturne, you didn't have an emblem, you were contested. Then you can always fall back into Mbessa. Even though this AVP isn't as good, if you slam the items to preserve HP, you can still go for a top 4, top 5. Whereas if you contest, you very likely could just end up going 6th, 7th, or 8th. So that covers kind of a high-level summary of the patch changes. If you were looking for an overall game plan, I basically say Silco, Heimer, and Zoe are going to be your main AP lines to take. Violet is going to be your main melee. If you have Spat, then Automata and Family are both quite good. And AD is kind of more of your backup option if uncontested and you have those components. So I would love to hear your thoughts on this analysis. If there's stuff that I didn't consider, stuff you disagree with, stuff you do agree with, maybe you tried out some of these and it's worked out well for you, let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.